What does it mean to feel like Spider-Man? First glance, it seems feeling like Spider-Man is just being able to swing from rooftop to rooftop, juggle bad guys effortlessly, have colorful supervillains, witty one-liners, and finally some high stakes. And I would say, yeah, that is what Spider-Man does. But is that what Spider-Man is about? I would claim that all of this doesn't really make you feel like Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is more than just his powers. People don't like him because of his power set, they like him because of his character and how the interactions he has with the supporting cast and the world he lives in help build his character. Now, Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes, because even though the character originated back in 1962, he is still relevant and timeless today, and he has been through numerous adaptations, remains incredibly popular. So when the new Spider-Man game was announced, I will admit it had my curiosity. Unfortunately, Spider-Man games have been going through something of a rough patch since Spider-Man 2, arguably Ultimate Spider-Man. There have been decent games, but nothing really stands out. They seem to miss the mark for what can only be described as feeling like Spider-Man. But now Insomniac announces that they'd be taking over the property and getting rid of moon swinging. Well, now you have my attention. And the game is great. It's fun. Swinging through the city feels good. Gliding between buildings is a rush. Honestly, it does miss a few things from the robust system of Spider-Man 2. But it adds new things that adds to the parkour, so it kind of makes up for it. Combat is great, it's arcadey in the right ways, stringing combos is just as fluid as web swinging, and it feels very satisfying to clear a whole room of baddies without taking a single scratch, using all of the gadgets in the environment at your disposal. And the storyline is engaging, for the most part, and the characters are great, for the most part. So obviously, all of this should make you feel like Spider-Man, right? Well, at times you do, but it feels like it misses more than it hits on what it means to feel like Spider-Man. But before we get into that, we need to describe what it means to be Spider-Man. So doing this one last time. Everybody knows his basic story. Was an unpopular nerd in high school, had a great set of parents, and got bit by a radioactive spider that gave him his powers. He originally used his powers for his own gain, and then his selfishness led to the murder of his Uncle Ben, and he learned, with great power comes great responsibility. And this is the main theme of the character. He is all about responsibility. And Peter Parker is very relatable because of his drive for responsibility. Like, even though he's a sensational superhero, has amazing powers, and been with spectacular women, the plights he suffers translates well to real life and to real people. Peter Parker struggles to maintain his relationships, his career, and misses fun opportunities because of his superhero-type responsibilities. He often has to choose which aspect of his life he needs to prioritize, and it often overwhelms him at times. And that is something I think a lot of people relate to. A lot of people face the same struggles. Everyone chooses what they prioritize in life, so they can relate with Peter Parker and empathize with his struggles, because for all his power, all his might, and all his heart, he's just a guy from Queens. So in my opinion, what would make someone feel like Spider-Man is not the web-slinging gymnastics, not the feats of proportional strength, but the weight of responsibility. Don't get me wrong, I think this game takes great strides towards hitting that angle. The previous Spider-Man games focused only on Spider-Man, and this one focuses on Peter Parker. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, not the other way around. There are moments in this game where I felt more like Spider-Man than the set pieces that the developers designed that I'm sure were intended for you to feel like Spider-Man. For instance, one of my biggest criticisms for this game is the bosses. There are a couple of good bosses, but for the most part, the formula here seems to be dodge attacks for a bit, immobilize them, and then press the triangle to gap close and mash square. Like, that doesn't feel like Spider-Man. It feels like a video game. But here's the thing though. I honestly have no problem with Spider-Man feeling like a video game or arcadey, because we are playing a game, but more on that later. To feel like Spider-Man, you have to do something that is unique to the theme of Spider-Man. Dodging a boss for a while, then attacking when he is tired is a video game cliche. That pattern can be described for most action games. I unironically felt more like Spider-Man delivering pizza. A mission in this game where I felt like Spider-Man was actually very innocuous. It was a mission where Spider-Man got evicted and he had to track down the garbage truck that could have his stuff. It wasn't anything really special. He calls the garbage department to find what truck could have his stuff. The operator starts off a little irritated, but over the time period of the mission, he befriends the operator. There was even a little part of the mission where they talk about the different pizza joints in the city. To me, that is Spider-Man. He is supposed to be one of the people in the city, so of course he knows the local pizza joints. And he is a very charming guy. And because of that, he wins over one of the more unruly citizens of the city, and this is without using his powers. For me, this mission made me feel like Spider-Man while also making the city feel alive. Which to me is one of the biggest voids in the game. Now don't get me wrong, the city is great, it is well designed and fun to traverse, but it doesn't feel alive. The city Spider-Man lives in is as part of the Spider-Man mythos and is just as much a character as Flash, J. Jonah Jameson, or Black Cat. Unfortunately, the world feels like a generic open world. Doesn't help when you got Assassin's Creed style towers to unlock parts of the map. Part of what makes Spider-Man the comic book juggernaut that he is how he interacts with all the characters that are themselves extensions of the world they come from. Now the developers did try. You can walk around the city on foot and give the citizens high fives, enemies can ambush you randomly, but that is it. There are collectibles and side missions and stuff, but this doesn't bring the world alive. It's the little details that help immerse you. Even the movies got this one right. One thing the Raimi trilogy did quite well was make the city feel alive. Like, think about all the little moments in those movies that stick in your mind that aren't purely about Spider-Man and the main cast. The game hits the mark though sometimes. I enjoy seeing the Twitter knockoff. I like the little cutscenes of Spider-Man chilling on the train while fast traveling, the J. Jonah Jameson podcast, and of course, the mission with tracking down garbage trucks. So I would like to see more of the little details in the sequel. They can use the exact same map with the exact same layout, but if they did things like switch out the billboards randomly at times depending on what's going on in the story, have NPCs doing more interactable things that lead to certain consequences. You know, just little things that are rare and consequential, but sort of make you stop and smell the roses in a way. Bring back my balloon! Make some things that only happen in certain parts of the city that help reward exploration, and really makes you feel like you are not just Spider-Man, but a citizen in his version of New York. There are things to do in the city, don't get me wrong. Like I said earlier, there are collectibles, challenges, side missions, but this is all very video gamey if you get me, and that's honestly good. Like I said before, Spider-Man being arcadey and video gamey is a great dichotomy. So I like the dynamic they made in this game. Spider-Man's the video game, but Peter Parker is not, which is why I appreciate that the story is more focused on Peter Parker. So in the sequel, aside from fixing what they did to MJ's character, they need to flesh out the city more. I understand if during development they didn't have time to add more of the little things, but with the sequel, now that they have a good base to work off of, they can go back and just add the details that bring a game to life. They have a good focus on Peter's relationship with his cast of side characters, and now they need to improve his relationship with the city and its people. One other thing I want expanded is the option of choice. Just like Spider-Man himself makes choices all the time, we need to be the ones that make the choices as well. Spider-Man Web of Shadows took this approach, allowing you to make various choices in the story that let you be evil. But I'm not asking for a morality system or anything cheesy and cliche like that. I would like to see the kind of story where you see various parts of the plot depending on what area of Peter's life you choose to focus on. So like at various points you can choose to explore if Peter spent more time on his career, or more time on his family, or more time with superhero shenanigans. Even if the story still has to converge at points to hit all the overarching story beats, it would also give the game more replayability just to know what would happen if you focused on a different area of Peter's life, without having to resort to some kind of morality system. Because one choice wouldn't necessarily be better than the other. They are all equal, but it would also make you feel more like Spider-Man because you are also juggling all of his responsibilities and prioritizing which ones at a time. Bringing it all together, Spider-Man is back, the game is great, it's a good step forward, but Spider-Man is also all about responsibility, and design-wise, to make you feel like Spider-Man, besides keeping Moonswinging far away, You have to introduce responsibility to the player and make Spider-Man have deeper interactions with the city he protects. Spider-Man is a normal man given spectacular powers in an amazing city. Have the players take on the burden of being the man, not the spider, and I think this will truly make people feel like Spider-Man.